He called me a welfare fraud and spit near my husband's grave. My name is Ellen Bartlett, and I'm 58 years old. For 7 years, I watched my son-in-law Derek Chen steal my disability money, mock my injury, and convince my own daughter I was worthless. At Raymond's will reading, he leaned forward with that poisonous smirk and said the words that destroyed his life. Finally, now we get what we've been waiting for from this government leech who never worked a real job. Derek had no clue he'd just insulted a woman who'd carried mail through Philadelphia winters for 32 years. Had no clue the $3.2 million cleaning business he was drooling over belonged to me. Had no clue that the FBI was already building a case against him. What happened next shocked everyone in that room, including my own daughter Nicole. I'm sharing this story because what I'm about to tell you could help you or someone you love avoid the same nightmare. Stick around and I'll show you exactly how one sentence destroyed a thief's entire world, because Derek learned the hard way that some disabled women bite back. The signs had been building for 7 years, ever since Raymond died. 2 incidents made it crystal clear how my own family saw me. First incident happened at Nicole's birthday dinner last April. Derek stood in my small kitchen, the kitchen in my rent-controlled apartment in North Philadelphia, holding court with his tech startup friends. I walked in wearing my back brace, just back from physical therapy. "Oh look," Derek announced, not even lowering his voice. "Here comes our resident disability case." His friends, young guys in expensive sneakers and designer hoodies, laughed uncomfortably. One of them, an Asian kid with a man bun, whispered loud enough for me to hear. I thought she was injured. "Back injury," Derek said, making air quotes with his fingers. "Gets $2,100 a month for not being able to lift packages." Meanwhile, Nicole and I are building actual businesses, working real jobs. I set down my purse, didn't say a word. Just walked to my bedroom, the small room at the back of the apartment I'd lived in for 23 years. The apartment Derek called embarrassing whenever his venture capitalist friends asked where his mother-in-law lived, but I heard every word that followed. "Honestly," Derek continued, "I don't even think she really worked that hard. Mail carrier? My UPS guy delivers twice as many packages and doesn't collect disability." Nicole's voice, soft, uncertain. "Derek, she worked for the post office for over 30 years. Doing what? Walking around putting letters in boxes? That's not work. That's a government handout with extra steps." Second incident was worse. 3 months ago, Derek showed up at my cleaning company office unannounced. Bartlett Commercial Cleaning Services, the small storefront on Germantown Avenue where I'd been running my side business for 30 years. To Derek, it was Mom's little cleaning hobby. He had no idea what it really was. I was there doing paperwork, reviewing contracts, managing schedules for my crew. Derek walked in like he owned the place. "Ellen, we need to talk about your situation." "My situation?" "This whole disability thing. It's getting embarrassing." Nicole's friends are starting to ask questions. Why does her mother live in that tiny apartment? Why doesn't she have a real retirement plan? Why is she still running this little cleaning business at 58? My hands tightened on my pen. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you let Nicole and me help. We can manage your finances, get you into a better living situation, maybe sell this business, and invest the money properly. You're not getting any younger, and honestly, Ellen, you're not equipped to handle complex financial decisions. Not equipped." The woman who'd built a multi-million-dollar business while working full-time for the Postal Service wasn't equipped to handle her own money. "Derek, I appreciate your concern, but I'm managing fine." "Are you?" "Because from where I'm standing, you're a 58-year-old woman with a bad back, living off disability checks, running a cleaning company that barely makes ends meet. Nicole worries about you. We both do." That's when I understood. This wasn't concern, this was reconnaissance. Derek was assessing my assets, calculating what he could take, figuring out how to position me as incompetent so he could seize control. Around us, my office hummed with activity. Phones ringing, dispatchers coordinating crews, the normal sounds of a business Derek thought was struggling. He had no idea that the little cleaning hobby generated $3.2 million in annual revenue. No idea that I employed 45 people. No idea that I had contracts with 3 hospital systems, 2 school districts, and a dozen office buildings across Philadelphia. But I let him think what he wanted. Let him believe I was a struggling disabled woman with a failing business. Because I'd learned something important over 58 years. Sometimes the best defense is being underestimated. That night, I sat in my small apartment and pulled out Raymond's journal, the one he'd kept during his final 2 years, the years when his heart was failing and I was too busy chasing contracts to notice. I'd read it once, right after he died, then put it away because the guilt was too heavy. But tonight, I needed to remember, needed to see clearly what my choices had cost. Raymond's handwriting filled the pages, neat and careful like everything about him. February 2018. Doctor says I need to slow down. Heart's not strong. Ellen says just 1 more year, then we'll take that trip to Jamaica we've been planning. I believe her. I always believe her. I turned the page, tears already blurring my vision. June 2018. Chest pains getting worse. Told Ellen I'm scared. She said, "Don't worry, we have good insurance." But insurance doesn't help if you're dead. She's at another client meeting. Always another meeting. December 2018. Nicole asked me today if I'm okay. I lied and said yes. Didn't want to worry her. Didn't want to make Ellen feel guilty. She's worked so hard building this business. How can I tell her it's killing me? That I'd trade every contract, every dollar, every success for 1 more year of health. February 2019. Ellen promised we'd see a cardiologist next month, after she closes the hospital contract. It's always after something. After this meeting. After that deal. After. I'm tired of after. But I don't know how to make her see that after might be too late. The journal ended there. 2 weeks later, Raymond had his heart attack. Alone in our apartment while I was 40 minutes away at a client crisis that couldn't wait. Except it could have waited. Everything could have waited. But I didn't know that until it was too late. Nicole found him, called 911, called me. By the time I got to the hospital, Raymond was gone. Age 56, dead because I chose contracts over his life. And now, 6 years later, my daughter barely spoke to me. Had married a man who saw me as a piggy bank. Had spent 7 years watching her husband steal from me while believing I deserved it. Because in her mind, I'd killed her father, and she wasn't wrong. The financial damage had been systematic and devastating. Over 7 years, Derek had stolen $378,400 from me. I knew the exact number because I'd been documenting everything for the past 6 months. Every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, every lie. It started small, like these things always do. 6 months after Raymond's funeral, Derek suggested Nicole should help me manage my disability payments. "Your mom's grief is affecting her judgment," he told her. "She's missing payments, forgetting bills. We should get power of attorney, just temporary, just to help." Nicole, still raw from losing her father, still angry at me for not being there when he died, agreed. She signed the documents Derek prepared. She thought she was helping her declining mother. She had no idea she was handing Derek the keys to everything I'd built. The disability checks went first. $2,000. $100 a month. Direct deposited to an account. Derek convinced Nicole to set up. For Ellen's care, he called it. For his failed tech ventures was the truth. 7 years, 84 months, $176,400 gone. Then came the power of attorney fraud. Derek used Nicole's signature to access accounts I'd set up for the cleaning business. Emergency repairs, the withdrawals said. Equipment purchases. Insurance payments. All lies. $165,000 stolen over 5 years. Money meant for my employees' payroll. Money that kept the business running. Money Derek funneled into cryptocurrency schemes and startup investments that went nowhere. The credit cards were the final insult. 3 cards I'd co-signed for Nicole years ago, back when she was starting her career and needed to build credit. Derek maxed them out. $37,000 in charges. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, tech gadgets for his entrepreneur friends. All in my name. All my responsibility when the bills came due. But Derek's biggest target was the cleaning business itself. He'd been telling potential investors that I was mentally incompetent, that my back injury was really early onset dementia, that the kind thing to do was help Nicole take over before I ran the company into the ground. I'd overheard him on a call 2 weeks ago. Listen, the business has potential, but the current owner is a 58-year-old disabled woman who can barely manage her own medications. My wife and I are positioning ourselves to take control. Once we do, I can bring in real management, scale this thing properly. We're talking 10x growth potential. 10 times growth. Derek thought my business was small, struggling, barely profitable. He had no idea that Bartlett Commercial Cleaning Services was already at scale. Had no idea that I'd built something he couldn't even comprehend. But the worst part wasn't the money. The worst part was watching my daughter become someone I didn't recognize. Nicole had always been kind, thoughtful, careful, Raymond's daughter through and through, but 7 years with Derek had changed her. She'd stopped visiting unless Derek came along, stopped calling unless she needed something, stopped being the girl who used to help me sort mail on Saturdays when she was little, who used to ride with me in the postal truck during summer breaks, who used to be proud that her mom was one of the few black women supervisors in the district. Now she looked at me with Derek's eyes, saw what he wanted her to see. A broken woman, a burden, someone whose assets needed managing before she wasted them. I'd tried talking to her once, about 6 months after she married Derek. We were having coffee at a diner near my apartment. Just the two of us, rare moment without Derek hovering. "Nicole, honey, are you happy?" She'd looked surprised. "Of course I'm happy. Derek's brilliant. He's going to change the tech industry. His new app is going to revolutionize local services. His last 3 apps didn't work out." Her face had hardened. "Mom, you don't understand entrepreneurship. Failure is part of the process. Derek's learning, building connections. His next venture is going to be huge." "With whose money?" "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've noticed withdrawals from accounts Derek said he needed access to. For my care," he said. "You're confused, Mom. We've talked about this. Your memory isn't what it used to be. The back injury, the medications, the stress of losing Dad. It's affected your cognition. Derek's been helping manage things because you can't anymore." That's when I knew. Derek hadn't just stolen my money. He'd stolen my daughter's trust, convinced her that her own mother was declining, incompetent, unreliable, made her question her own memories, her own judgment. It's called gaslighting. I'd learned the term from a support group for elder financial abuse victims, a group I'd joined 3 months ago when I finally admitted to myself what was happening, when I finally started fighting back. The group met every Thursday at a community center in South Philly. 12 people, mostly women, mostly older, all victims of family members who'd stolen from them. Children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, people who were supposed to love them, protect them, honor them. Instead, they'd been seen as resources to exploit. "My son took $200,000, one woman said. Told me it was for my care. Spent it on boats and vacations. My daughter-in-law convinced my son I had dementia," another shared. Even though 3 doctors said I was fine, she just wanted my house. My grandson used my credit cards to fund his gambling addiction, ruined my credit. Now I can't get loans, can't refinance my house. I'm 73 years old, and my credit score is 480. I'd sat there listening, realizing I wasn't alone. Realizing this was an epidemic. Adult children and their spouses seeing elderly parents not as people but as bank accounts, as obstacles to inheritance, as problems to solve rather than parents to honor. The group leader, a social worker named Patricia Monroe, had pulled me aside after my first meeting. "Ellen, you mentioned your son-in-law has power of attorney?" "Through my daughter, yes." "And you mentioned a business?" "Small cleaning company. Nothing major." Patricia had studied me carefully. "Ellen, I used to work in elder law before I became a social worker. I've seen this pattern before. The isolated victim, the controlling family member, the systematic theft disguised as help." "Can I ask you something directly?" "Sure." "Is your business actually small?" I'd hesitated, then decided trust had to start somewhere. "No, it's worth about $3.2 million. Patricia's eyes had widened. "And your son-in-law knows this?" "He thinks it barely breaks even." "I've let him think that." "Good. Keep it that way." "But Ellen, you need to understand something. If Derek realizes what your business is actually worth, he's not going to stop at stealing disability checks. He's going to try to take everything. He'll have you declared incompetent. He'll use your daughter to get control, and once he has it, you'll never get it back." "What should I do?" "Document everything, every theft, every lie, every fraudulent transaction. And then, when you're ready, we fight back. But you have to be prepared for what that means. Your daughter's going to have to choose. Between you and him. Between the truth and the lie he's been telling her. What if she chooses him?" Patricia's expression had been sad but honest. "Then you'll have to choose too. Between protecting your assets and protecting her from prosecution. Because if she signed those power of attorney documents, if her name is on those accounts, she's legally complicit, even if she didn't know what he was doing." That conversation had been 3 months ago. Since then, I'd been gathering evidence, bank statements, forged documents, recorded conversations, a paper trail that led straight to Derek. And tomorrow was Raymond's will reading, the will Derek thought would finally give him access to everything. The will that was actually going to destroy him. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Patricia. "Everything ready for tomorrow?" Her response came immediately. "FBI will be standing by. Are you sure you want to do this?" I looked at Raymond's journal, still open on my table. Looked at the words he'd written 2 weeks before he died. I'd trade every contract, every dollar, every success for 1 more year of health. I couldn't give Raymond another year, but I could make sure Derek paid for the 7 years he'd stolen from me. "I'm sure," I texted back. "Let's end this." The will reading was scheduled for Friday afternoon, June 21st, at 2 p.m., 6 years and 4 months since Raymond died. The lawyer, Edward Harrison, had scheduled it specifically at Derek's request. Derek had been calling every few months for the past 2 years, asking when Ellen's estate matters could be settled. He didn't realize it was Raymond's will being read, not mine. Didn't realize Raymond had been far more careful about our assets than Derek ever suspected. Didn't realize that the man he'd dismissed as just a high school janitor had been my business partner and co-founder of everything we'd built. Friday morning, I dressed carefully, not in my usual jeans and postal service jacket, but in a navy blue suit I'd bought for Raymond's funeral and hadn't worn since. I looked at myself in the mirror. 58 years old. Gray showing at my temples. Lines around my eyes from 32 years of squinting against Philadelphia sun and snow. Back brace hidden under my jacket. I looked tired. I looked ordinary. I looked exactly like what Derek expected. A worn-out, disabled woman who'd spent her life carrying mail and scrubbing floors. Perfect. Patricia called at noon. Ellen, last chance. You can still back out. We can handle this privately. Avoid the public confrontation. No, he needs to be exposed. In front of Nicole. In front of witnesses. He needs to understand that what he did has consequences. The FBI is ready. They'll wait until after the will is read, let Derek make his move. Once he shows his hand, they'll arrest him in the conference room. And Nicole? Patricia was quiet for a moment. Ellen, you know she's going to be devastated. Even if she didn't know the full extent of what Derek was doing, she's still going to feel betrayed. By him for lying, by you for setting this trap. I'm not setting a trap. I'm revealing the truth. Sometimes the truth destroys more than lies. I thought about Raymond's journal, about all the truths I'd ignored until it was too late. Then it's time for some destruction. I arrived at Harrison & Associates at 1:45 p.m. The office was in Center City, all glass and steel, the kind of place that charged $800 an hour just to sit in the waiting room. Derek loved these places, loved the appearance of success even when he couldn't afford it. Nicole was already there, sitting in the reception area. She looked thin, tired. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she wore a dress I'd seen on Derek's credit card statement, $1,200, charged to one of my stolen cards. Mom. She stood up, gave me a brief, uncomfortable hug. You look nice. So do you, baby. Derek arrived at 1:55, making an entrance. Expensive suit, designer watch, confidence radiating off him like cologne. He nodded at me dismissively. Ellen, glad you could make it. Like I was a guest at my own husband's will reading. We were led to a conference room. Mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Edward Harrison, mid-60s, gray hair, kind eyes, sat at the head of the table. Next to him was someone I recognized, Patricia Monroe, the social worker from my support group. Derek noticed her presence, but didn't register who she was. To him, she was just another lawyer, another functionary in the process of transferring wealth to him. Thank you all for coming, Edward began. We're here for the reading of Raymond Bartlett's last will and testament. Before we begin, I need to introduce Patricia Monroe. She's here in her capacity as trustee number 3. Derek frowned. Trustee? I thought Ellen was the sole beneficiary. Let me read the will, Edward said. Then everything will become clear. He opened the document, adjusted his reading glasses. I, Raymond Bartlett, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. To my beloved wife Ellen, I leave my share of Bartlett Commercial Cleaning Services, along with all associated assets, properties, and contracts. Derek leaned forward. This was what he'd been waiting for. The confirmation that Ellen owned the business, owned everything. The moment when he could start positioning himself to take control. However, Edward continued, I stipulate the following conditions. First, Ellen retains full control of all assets, unless she is declared mentally incompetent by 3 trustees, all of whom must unanimously agree to such a declaration. Derek's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of concern. Trustee 1, Ellen Bartlett herself. Trustee 2, Nicole Bartlett Chen. Trustee 3, Patricia Monroe, City Councilwoman and advocate for elder rights. Patricia nodded from her seat. Nicole looked confused. Derek's jaw tightened. Second, Edward said, any attempt to access, liquidate, or transfer assets without unanimous trustee approval constitutes grounds for immediate criminal investigation and prosecution. Third, in the event that evidence of financial exploitation or elder abuse is discovered, all power of attorney agreements are void, and criminal charges may be filed against the perpetrator. The room was very quiet. Finally, Edward looked up from the document, his eyes meeting mine. Raymond Bartlett wanted it known that Bartlett Commercial Cleaning Services, as of the date of his death, was valued at $2.8 million. Current valuation, as of this month, is $3.2 million. Derek's face went white. What? The cleaning business you've referred to as Ellen's little hobby, Patricia said, speaking for the first time, generates over $3 million in annual revenue. It employs 45 people. It holds contracts with 3 hospital systems, 2 school districts, and a dozen major office buildings across Philadelphia. Nicole turned to look at me, shock written across her face. Mom? And Derek, Patricia continued, we know what you've been doing. We know about the stolen disability checks, the power of attorney fraud, the $378,400 you've taken over 7 years. Derek stood up. This is insane. Ellen's been incompetent for years. Everyone knows it. Her back injury, her medications, she can barely manage daily tasks. Sit down, Mr. Chen, said a voice from the doorway. 2 men in suits entered the conference room, FBI badges visible on their belts. Derek's nightmare was just beginning, and I was finally going to get justice. Special Agent Thomas Martinez stepped into the conference room, his partner Agent Sarah Chen right behind him. The irony of her last name wasn't lost on me. Derek noticed it too, his face flickering with confusion before settling back into defensive anger. Derek Chen, Agent Martinez said, we need to ask you some questions about financial transactions involving Ellen Bartlett's accounts over the past 7 years. I don't have to answer anything. I want a lawyer. That's your right. But you should know we've been investigating your activities for the past 4 months. We have documentation of 127 fraudulent transactions totaling $378,400. Wire fraud. Elder financial abuse. Identity theft. Forgery. Nicole stood up, her voice shaking. What are you talking about? Derek's been helping my mother. She gave him permission. Agent Chen opened a folder, slid papers across the table. Mrs. Chen, these are bank statements showing withdrawals from your mother's disability account. $2,100 every month for 84 months. The account was set up using power of attorney documents that list you as the primary agent. I set that up to help Mom pay her bills. And where did the money go? Nicole looked at Derek, to Mom's care account. For her medications, her rent, her expenses. Actually, Agent Chen said, the money went to an account in Derek's name. From there, it was transferred to cryptocurrency exchanges, startup investments, and personal expenses, luxury purchases, designer clothing, tech equipment. None of it went to your mother's care. That's not true. Derek told me he was managing everything. He showed me statements. Forged statements, I said quietly. He showed you what he wanted you to see, baby. Nicole turned to Derek. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them you were helping Mom. Derek said nothing. His silence was the loudest answer in the room. Agent Martinez continued. Mr. Chen, we also have evidence that you researched elder financial abuse tactics extensively. Your browser history shows visits to forums discussing how to gain control of elderly relatives' assets, how to establish incompetency, how to access accounts without detection. That's not illegal. I was researching to help Ellen. You researched it 6 months before you proposed to Nicole, before you'd even met Ellen. The room went silent. Nicole's face drained of color. You were looking for this, she whispered. You were looking for someone with an elderly parent you could steal from. Nicole, that's not what happened. Then explain it. Explain why you were researching elder abuse before we were even engaged. Explain where my mother's disability money went. Explain the $165,000 in power of attorney withdrawals I didn't know about. I needed capital for my ventures. The money was just sitting there. Ellen wasn't using it. She lives in that tiny apartment, drives that old car. She doesn't need millions in the bank. It wasn't yours to take, I said. Derek turned on me, all pretense of civility gone. You think you're so smart? You think this little trap you set makes you better than me? You're a mail carrier, a cleaning lady. You spent your whole life doing menial labor while I've been building the future. You've been building nothing. 3 failed startups, $200,000 in personal debt. You're not an entrepreneur, Derek. You're a con artist who married my daughter to steal from me. I gave Nicole a life you never could. A real life, not scrubbing floors and delivering mail like some. Careful, Agent Martinez interrupted. You're already facing federal charges. Don't add hate crimes to the list. Derek's mouth snapped shut, but his eyes were full of venom. Nicole was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. I helped you. I signed those documents because I thought Mom needed help. I believed you when you said she was declining. I trusted you. You were easy to manipulate, Derek said, and the cruelty in his voice made Nicole flinch. Your grief made you weak. Your guilt over your father made you desperate. You wanted someone to take care of you so badly that you never questioned anything I said. Derek, stop, I said. Why? It's the truth. Nicole's been useful. Access to your accounts, legitimacy for the power of attorney, a shield against suspicion. Why would anyone investigate a daughter helping her disabled mother? That's enough, Agent Chen said. Mr. Chen, you're under arrest for wire fraud, elder financial abuse under federal law, and identity theft. You have the right to remain silent. They read him his rights while Derek stood there, still defiant, still convinced he'd find a way out. They put handcuffs on him, led him toward the door. As he passed Nicole, he stopped. This is your fault too. You signed the documents. Your name is on the accounts. If I go down, you go down with me. After they took Derek away, Nicole collapsed into a chair. Her whole body was shaking. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what he was doing. I wanted to comfort her, wanted to tell her it was okay, that I forgave her, that we'd get through this together, but I couldn't, because part of me was still angry, still hurt, still remembering all the times she'd stood by while Derek insulted me, dismissed me, treated me like I was worthless. I know you didn't know everything, I said carefully, but you knew enough. You knew he was taking money. You knew he was making decisions without asking me. And you let it happen because it was easier than confronting him. I thought I was helping you. Did you? Or did you want to believe that? Did you want to believe I was declining, incompetent, broken? Because if I was, then maybe Dad's death wasn't my fault. Maybe I was already failing before he died. Nicole looked up at me, tears streaming. Yes, I wanted to believe you were the problem, because if you weren't, then I had to face the truth. That I've hated you for 6 years for something you couldn't control. That I married a monster while grieving. That I helped him steal from you because I was too angry to see clearly. Patricia Monroe spoke gently. Nicole, you're a victim too. Derek manipulated you, isolated you, used your grief against you. But you also have a choice now. You can cooperate with the investigation, testify about what he told you, help build the case, or you can stay silent and face charges as an accomplice. What charges? Your signature is on power of attorney documents used to commit fraud. Even if you didn't know the full extent, you could be charged as an accessory. Nicole looked at me. What do you want me to do? It was the first time in 7 years she'd asked what I wanted, and I didn't have an answer. I looked at my daughter sitting across from me in that expensive conference room. She looked younger than her 35 years, fragile, broken. She looked like she'd looked at Raymond's funeral, lost, searching for someone to tell her what to do, how to feel, how to survive. 7 years ago, Derek had been there to tell her, and I hadn't. Nicole, I want you to tell the truth, all of it. What Derek told you, what you signed, what you knew, and when you knew it, even if it makes you look bad, even if it means admitting you were complicit. Will I go to prison? I looked at Patricia, who nodded slightly. That depends on the prosecutor. If you cooperate fully, if you testify against Derek, they might offer immunity. But Nicole, you have to understand something. The legal consequences are just part of this. The real question is whether you can live with yourself if you don't make this right. I don't know how to make this right. I helped him steal from you, Mom. Even if I didn't know the full amount, even if I thought I was helping, I still signed those documents. I still looked the other way when things didn't add up. Why did you look away? Nicole was quiet for a long moment. Because it was easier than admitting I'd made a mistake marrying him. Easier than admitting I'd chosen a man like Derek 6 months after Dad died. Easier than facing you and seeing the judgment in your eyes. I wasn't judging you. Weren't you? Mom, you looked at me at my wedding like I was making the biggest mistake of my life. You barely spoke to Derek. You left early. I knew you didn't approve, and that made me defensive, made me want to prove you wrong, made me double down on Derek even when I started seeing red flags. I thought back to Nicole's wedding, small ceremony, rushed, Derek pushing to get married before Nicole could change her mind. I'd tried to be supportive, tried to be happy for her, but Nicole was right. I'd had reservations, serious ones. You want to know why I left early? I asked. It wasn't because I disapproved. It was because being there, watching you get married, it reminded me of my own wedding. Raymond and me, 38 years old, starting our life together, and I realized sitting there that I'd wasted so much of our marriage, working, building the business, chasing success. And then he was gone, and I couldn't get those years back. So you did judge me. You thought I was making the same mistake. No, I was scared for you. There's a difference. I saw you rushing into marriage with a man you barely knew, and I was terrified you'd wake up one day and realize you'd built your life with the wrong person. That you'd spend years trying to make it work because you were too proud to admit the mistake. Just like I spent years choosing work over Raymond because I was too proud to admit I didn't have to prove anything. Nicole wiped her eyes. Did you ever love Dad? Or was the business always more important? The question hit like a punch. I loved your father more than anything. But I didn't know how to show it except by providing, by building something, by making sure we had security. My mother cleaned houses for rich white families. My grandmother worked in a laundry. I was the first person in my family to have a government job with benefits, the first to own a business. I thought that was love, giving you and Raymond a better life. We didn't need a better life. We needed you. I know that now. I knew it the day Raymond died. I knew it when I read his journal and saw how many times he'd written about missing me, needing me, wanting me to just be present. But by then, it was too late. Edward Harrison cleared his throat gently. Ladies, I hate to interrupt, but Agent Martinez needs to speak with Nicole. There are formal statements to be taken. Nicole stood up slowly. Before she left, she turned back to me. Mom, I need to ask you something. When you set this trap for Derek, when you gathered all this evidence and waited for the will reading to expose him, did you think about what it would do to me? Did you care that I'd be humiliated in front of lawyers and FBI agents? That my marriage would explode in public? I'd known this question was coming, had been dreading it. Yes, I thought about it. And I did it anyway. Because if I'd confronted Derek privately, he would have convinced you I was lying. He would have gaslit you again, manipulated you again, made you doubt your own eyes. The only way to break his control over you was to expose him so completely that you couldn't deny the truth. So you sacrificed me to save me? I sacrificed our relationship to save your future. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it feels the same. She walked out with Agent Martinez, leaving me alone with Patricia and Edward. Patricia spoke first. Ellen, that was brutal. For both of you. It was necessary. Was it? Or did you want Derek to be exposed publicly because you're angry at Nicole? Because on some level, you blame her for not defending you these past 7 years. I wanted to deny it. Wanted to say this was purely about justice, about protecting other victims, about holding Derek accountable. But Patricia had been doing this work too long. She could see through me. Maybe both are true. Maybe I wanted justice and revenge. Maybe I wanted to protect Nicole and punish her. Maybe I'm just like Raymond said in his journal, someone who chooses the outcome she wants over the people she loves. The difference, Edward said quietly, is that you're choosing to face that truth now. Raymond never got the chance to see you recognize your mistakes. Nicole does. What you do with that chance matters more than why you exposed Derek. Agent Martinez returned 20 minutes later. Mrs. Bartlett, we need your formal statement as well. But I wanted to tell you something first. Your daughter is cooperating fully. She's provided documentation we didn't even know existed. Text messages from Derek coaching her on what to say to you. Emails outlining his plans to have you declared incompetent. She's been documenting his behavior for the past 6 months. She knew something was wrong. She just didn't know how to stop it. She was gathering evidence? In her own way. I think she was trying to protect you. She just didn't know how. After I gave my statement, after the lawyers finished their paperwork, after Patricia and Edward left, I sat alone in the conference room watching the sun set over Philadelphia, the city where I'd walked mail routes for 32 years, the city where I'd built a multi-million-dollar business, the city where I'd lost my husband and alienated my daughter. My phone buzzed. Text from Nicole. Can we talk? Not today, not tomorrow, but someday? I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if you can forgive me, but maybe we can try. I typed back. Someday. Yes. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't even the beginning of healing, but it was a door left open instead of slammed shut. And maybe that was enough for now. The media found the story within 48 hours. Disabled mail carrier exposes son-in-law's $378 Kelvin's theft, read the Philadelphia Inquirer headline. By Monday, it had gone national. CNN, MSNBC, local news stations. Everyone wanted to interview the woman who'd taken down her son-in-law at a will reading with the FBI waiting in the wings. I declined most of them, but Patricia convinced me to do one interview with a local reporter who specialized in elder abuse issues. Your story could help other families recognize the warning signs, she said. It could save someone. The interview aired Tuesday evening. I watched it alone in my apartment, seeing myself on screen talking about the 7 years of theft, the gaslighting, the systematic isolation. The reporter asked the question I'd been dreading. Mrs. Bartlett, your daughter Nicole was listed on the power of attorney documents. Is she facing charges? Nicole was manipulated by her husband. She believed she was helping me. The prosecution is reviewing her level of involvement, but she's cooperating fully with the investigation. Some people are saying you set a trap for your own daughter, that you knew she'd be implicated but went ahead anyway. How do you respond to that? I'd look directly at the camera. I respond by saying that sometimes love means making impossible choices. I could have let Derek continue stealing, avoided conflict, kept the peace, but that would have meant enabling his abuse. Teaching my daughter that family loyalty means accepting mistreatment. I chose the harder path. I chose truth over comfort. And yes, that truth hurt Nicole. But lies were destroying her. After the interview aired, my phone exploded. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Emails flooding my inbox. Most were supportive, some were cruel. You betrayed your own daughter. What kind of mother does this? You're just as bad as the son-in-law. But others were different. Thank you for sharing your story. My son has been stealing from me for 3 years. I didn't know what to do. Now I do. My daughter-in-law has power of attorney over my mother. After seeing your interview, I'm checking the accounts tomorrow. You gave me courage to stand up to my family. By Wednesday, Patricia's support group had doubled in size. 24 people now, all dealing with financial abuse from family members. All inspired by seeing someone fight back publicly. One woman, Maria Torres, approached me after the meeting. Mrs. Bartlett, can I talk to you privately? We went to a coffee shop down the street. Maria was in her 30s, Army sergeant, still in uniform. My grandmother is 79. She served as an Army nurse in Vietnam. For the past 4 years, her son, my Uncle Carlos, has been stealing her pension, about $2,400 a month. He convinced her she needed him to manage her money because of her age. How much has he taken? Over $100,000. My grandmother lives in a 1-bedroom apartment with no heat half the time. She eats 1 meal a day to save money. Meanwhile, Uncle Carlos drives a new Mercedes and just bought a beach house. Maria pulled out a folder of documents. Bank statements, forged signatures, text messages, where Carlos discussed how to access more of his mother's accounts. I didn't know what to do. He's my uncle. My grandmother loves him, but then I saw your interview, saw what you did, and I realized staying silent makes me complicit. I spent 2 hours reviewing Maria's grandmother's case. The patterns were identical to what Derek had done. The same gaslighting, the same isolation, the same systematic theft disguised as help. Maria, you need to file a report with Adult Protective Services, and you need to contact the FBI. This is federal elder abuse, just like my case. Will you help me? I'll do everything I can. By Friday, Derek's lawyer had reached out requesting a meeting. I met him at a diner in South Philly, Patricia beside me for support. The lawyer, Kenneth Walsh, was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive suit, slicked back hair, the kind of man who'd made a career defending people like Derek. Mrs. Bartlett, my client is willing to discuss a plea agreement. What kind of agreement? Full restitution of the $378,400, 10 years in federal prison. Permanent ban from serving as anyone's power of attorney or financial representative. And what does Derek want in return? He wants you to publicly state that Nicole was unaware of his activities, that she was as much a victim as you were. He's willing to plead guilty to all charges if you ensure Nicole faces no prosecution. I looked at Patricia. She nodded slightly. This was Derek's one decent act, protecting Nicole even as his world collapsed. Why would he do that? Walsh hesitated. He told me to tell you that Nicole was the only real thing in his life, that he did love her, even if he loved money more. He doesn't want her going to prison for his crimes. How touching. The con artist has a conscience. Do you accept the terms? I thought about Nicole, about the text she'd sent, about the possibility of someday rebuilding what Derek had destroyed between us. If she went to prison, that door would close forever. I accept, but I have a condition. Derek has to provide testimony about any other families he researched or targeted. If there are other victims, he helps us find them. Walsh made a note. I'll present that to the prosecutor. That evening, I got a call from Agent Martinez. Mrs. Bartlett, we've received 47 calls from people who saw your interview and believe they're victims of family financial abuse. The FBI is opening investigations into 22 of those cases. Your willingness to go public has started something bigger than your own case. That's good. There's something else. The U.S. Attorney's Office wants to know if you'd be willing to testify before a Senate subcommittee on elder financial abuse. They're considering new legislation to strengthen protections and penalties. They want me to go to Washington? They want your story to be part of the public record, to show senators what elder abuse looks like in real families. Not statistics, but actual human impact. I thought about Raymond, about how he'd have felt knowing his death, my mistakes, our daughter's pain, might help prevent other families from suffering the same way. Tell them yes, I'll testify. After the call, I pulled out Raymond's journal again. Read the entry from January 2019, 1 month before he died. Ellen is building an empire. I'm proud of her. But I wonder sometimes if she realizes empires are built on sacrifice. And in our case, I'm the sacrifice. I just hope someday she understands that the greatest success isn't what you build, it's who you become in the building. Right now, she's becoming someone I don't recognize. Someone who'll wake up one day surrounded by success and completely alone. He'd been right. I had woken up alone, surrounded by success I'd built at the cost of everything that mattered. But maybe, finally, I was starting to understand what Raymond had tried to tell me. Success without presence is just expensive loneliness. 3 weeks after the will reading, Derek's plea deal was finalized. 10 years in federal prison, full restitution of $378,400, lifetime ban from financial management roles. And as part of the agreement, he provided names and information about 4 other potential victims he'd researched before settling on Nicole. The FBI opened investigations into all 4. 2 were actively being victimized by family members. Derek's testimony would help build those cases. Nicole came to my apartment for the first time in 6 years the day the plea was finalized. She stood in the doorway, hesitant, like she was visiting a stranger. In some ways, she was. "Can I come in?" Of course. She sat on my old couch, the same couch she'd sat on as a child, doing homework while I sorted mail. We sat in uncomfortable silence for several minutes. "The prosecutor called me," she finally said. "Told me they're not pressing charges. That you made it a condition of accepting Derek's plea deal. You were manipulated. You didn't deserve prison." "I signed the documents, Mom. I let him use my name. I should face some consequences." "You are facing consequences. Your marriage is over. Your trust is broken. You're going to spend years in therapy untangling what Derek did to you. That's consequence enough." Nicole pulled at a thread on her sleeve. "I went to see him. At the detention center, before the plea was finalized." "Why?" "I needed to ask him if any of it was real. If he ever actually loved me, or if I was just the mark from the beginning." "What did he say?" "He said he loved me as much as someone like him could love anyone, that he'd started the relationship as a con, but somewhere along the way, I became more than that. He said the worst part of prison wouldn't be the time. It would be knowing he'd destroyed the only good thing in his life." "Do you believe him?" "I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Real or not, the result is the same. 7 years of my life built on lies. Not all lies. You worked hard at the business. You were good at managing the office operations. That was real." Nicole looked up at me. "The business." "Mom, I've been doing the books for 7 years, and I never knew it was worth $3.2 million. How did I miss that?" "Because Derek controlled what you saw. He had you managing one small division while telling you it represented the whole company. Classic compartmentalization. You never saw the full financial picture. Were you ever going to tell me?" "Yes. Raymond and I planned to bring you in as a partner once you turned 30. We wanted you to earn your place first, understand the work, the sacrifice, the responsibility. Then we were going to show you what we'd really built. But Dad died when I was 29, and I was too paralyzed by grief to follow through. By the time I could think clearly, Derek was already poisoning you against me. I didn't know how to reach you anymore." Nicole's eyes filled with tears. "I blamed you for Dad's death. For years I convinced myself that if you'd been there, if you'd noticed his symptoms earlier, if you'd taken him to the doctor instead of going to client meetings, he'd still be alive. You were right to blame me." "No, I wasn't. I read his medical records, Mom. After the will reading, I requested them. The heart disease was genetic, advanced. Even if he'd gone to the doctor 2 years earlier, the outcome would have been the same. Maybe 6 more months. Maybe a year. But he was dying regardless." I stared at her. "What?" "The cardiologist wrote in his notes that Dad's condition was hereditary, progressive, and ultimately terminal. His father died of heart disease at 54, his uncle at 52. Dad made it to 56. The doctor said Dad knew. He'd been told years before, He just never told us." The room tilted. Raymond knew he was dying? He knew he didn't have long. The doctor's notes from 2017 say Dad refused aggressive treatment, said he wanted to spend his remaining time at home, with family, not in hospitals. He made that choice, Mom. Not you. I couldn't breathe. 7 years of guilt. 7 years of believing I'd killed my husband by choosing work over his health, and he'd known all along, had chosen not to tell me, had let me carry the guilt rather than burden me with the truth. Why wouldn't he tell me? Because he knew you'd stop everything. Sell the business. Spend every second with him, and he didn't want that. He wrote it in a letter to me. I found it after he died, but I was too angry to understand it. He said you'd spent your whole life building something. He didn't want his death to destroy what you'd created. He wanted you to keep going, to finish what you'd started. Nicole handed me a folded piece of paper, Raymond's handwriting, addressed to her. He asked me to give this to you when the time was right. I was supposed to wait until I stopped being angry, until I could see clearly again. I guess today is that day. I opened the letter with shaking hands. My darling Ellen, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And knowing you, you're blaming yourself. Don't. This was always going to happen. My heart was broken long before you and I met. Broken by genetics, by fate, by something beyond either of our control. You didn't kill me. You gave me the best years of my life. You gave me Nicole. You gave me purpose. You gave me love, even when you weren't there, especially when you weren't there, because I knew why you worked so hard. You were trying to build a fortress against the poverty you grew up in, trying to make sure Nicole never knew hunger, never knew fear, never knew what it meant to be powerless. That came from love. Misguided maybe, obsessive certainly, but love nonetheless. Don't let guilt steal the rest of your life. Don't let my death become your prison. Live, Ellen. Finish what we started, and when the time comes, teach Nicole what we learned, that success means nothing if you're alone, that empires crumble but family endures, that presence matters more than presence. I loved you every day, even the days you weren't there, especially those days, because loving you meant accepting all of you. Your ambition, your drive, your fear of being nothing. I accepted it, I understood it, and I never once wished you were different. Raymond. I was sobbing before I finished. Nicole moved to sit beside me, and for the first time in 7 years, we held each other and cried. 2 months after Derek's sentencing, I testified before the Senate Subcommittee on Aging in Washington, D.C. The hearing room was intimidating. High ceilings, rows of senators on an elevated platform, cameras everywhere. But I'd carried mail through Philadelphia blizzards for 32 years. I could handle this. Senator Elizabeth Warren led the questioning. Mrs. Bartlett, can you describe the moment you realized your son-in-law was stealing from you? It wasn't one moment. It was 100 small ones. Transactions I didn't authorize. Conversations I didn't remember having. Derek telling me I was confused when I questioned him. It's designed to make you doubt your own memory, your own sanity. And your daughter was involved in the power of attorney arrangement? My daughter was manipulated. Derek exploited her grief over losing her father. He isolated her, controlled information, made her believe she was helping me when she was actually enabling his theft. What would you say to other families facing similar situations? I looked directly at the camera. I'd say trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If a family member suddenly wants control of your finances, ask why. If they tell you you're too confused to manage your own affairs, get a second opinion and document everything. Every transaction, every conversation, every red flag. Because without documentation, it's your word against theirs. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Afterward, Senator Warren approached me privately. Mrs. Bartlett, your testimony was powerful. We're drafting the Financial Elder Protection Act based on cases like yours. Stricter oversight, mandatory reporting, harsher penalties. Will it pass? With stories like yours, I believe it will. You've put a human face on statistics. That matters in Washington. Flying back to Philadelphia, I thought about Raymond's letter. About 7 years of unnecessary guilt. About how grief had blinded both Nicole and me, making us easy targets for Derek's manipulation. My phone buzzed. Text from Nicole. How did it go? Good. I think we helped some people. Dad would be proud. Yeah, he would. Back home, the cleaning business needed attention. I'd been so focused on the legal case that I'd let operations slide. Nicole had offered to help, tentatively rebuilding our relationship through work. She came to the office 3 days a week now, not as an employee, as a partner, learning the business from the ground up, the way Raymond and I had always planned. Mom, we got another contract, she said Wednesday afternoon. Temple University wants us to handle their administrative buildings. That's 12 buildings, $400,000 annual contract. That's incredible. How did you land that? I told them about our business, about how you and Dad built this from nothing, about the integrity, the consistency, the care. They liked the story. We worked side by side that afternoon, reviewing contracts, scheduling crews, planning expansion. It felt normal. Not perfect, not healed, but normal. Can I ask you something? Nicole said as we were closing up. Do you regret exposing Derek the way you did? At the will reading, in front of everyone? Sometimes. It was brutal. For both of us. But if I'd done it privately, you wouldn't have believed me. Derek's control over you was that strong. The only way to break it was to expose him so completely that denial was impossible. I've been thinking about that, about how sometimes you have to destroy something to save it. Like Dad's letter. He never told you about his heart because he knew the truth would destroy what you'd built. But Derek's lies were destroying me, so you had to expose them. That's more generous than I deserve. No, it's just accurate. You weren't perfect. Neither was Dad. Neither am I. But you fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself, even if it meant hurting me in the process. Agent Martinez called that evening with an update. Mrs. Bartlett, I wanted you to know we've arrested 3 more people based on Derek's information. All family members stealing from elderly relatives. Combined theft of over $800,000. Will they face the same charges as Derek? Similar. The precedent your case set is making prosecutors more aggressive about elder financial abuse. Derek getting 10 years sent a message. Good. There's something else. We've been contacted by 167 families since your Senate testimony, all reporting potential elder abuse. Your story is creating a wave. People are finally speaking up. After the call, I sat in my apartment thinking about waves, about how one person's courage could ripple outward, about how Raymond's death, my grief, Nicole's manipulation, Derek's theft, all the pain and mistakes and consequences might actually save other families from the same suffering. It didn't make the pain worth it, but it gave the pain meaning. My phone rang. Number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Bartlett? This is Maria Torres. Remember me? My grandmother's case? Of course. How is she? The FBI arrested my uncle today. They found $140,000 in stolen pension money. My grandmother is getting it back. She cried when I told her. She said to thank you, said you gave our family hope. After we hung up, I pulled out Raymond's journal one more time. Read the final entry. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of Ellen being alone. Not physically alone, but emotionally isolated. She's built walls so high that no one can reach her, not even Nicole. My last wish is that something breaks those walls down, that Ellen learns to let people in before it's too late, that she discovers presence matters more than empires. I won't be there to teach her, but maybe life will. Life had taught me. Through Derek's betrayal, through Nicole's pain, through my own mistakes finally catching up with me, the walls were coming down, slowly, painfully, but down. I texted Nicole. "Dinner tomorrow? Your choice of restaurant." Her response came immediately. "Dad's favorite Thai place?" Perfect. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't even close to healed. But it was presence. And maybe that was enough. 1 year after Derek's sentencing, the Financial Elder Protection Act passed with bipartisan support. The bill included mandatory reporting requirements for financial institutions, stricter penalties for family members who committed elder abuse, and funding for legal aid programs to help victims. Senator Warren's office called to invite me to the signing ceremony. I declined. The work was more important than the recognition. Nicole and I had settled into a new rhythm. She ran day-to-day operations of Bartlett Commercial Cleaning while I focused on strategic expansion. We'd added 8 new contracts and hired 15 more employees. The business was thriving. But more importantly, we were learning to be mother and daughter again, slowly, carefully, with the understanding that some wounds don't fully heal, they just become scars you learn to live with. Thursday evening, Nicole came to my apartment for our weekly dinner. She brought Thai food from Raymond's favorite restaurant. We'd been doing this every week for 6 months. "Mom, I need to tell you something," she said as we ate. "I've been seeing someone. A therapist recommended I wait a year before dating, but I met someone at a coffee shop last month. His name is James. He's a teacher. No tech startups, no schemes, just a regular guy with a regular job. How do you feel about him?" Terrified, excited, cautious, all of it. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to ask about my money or my business connections, but he just wants to talk about books and lesson plans and his students. That sounds healthy. I want you to meet him. Not now, not yet, but eventually, I want you to be part of my life again. The real part, not just the business part. I reached across the table and took her hand. "I'd like that. There's something else. I've been thinking about Dad. About what he wrote in that letter. About how he didn't want his death to destroy what you'd built. I think he'd want us to do something with the business, something that honors him. What did you have in mind?" "A foundation. Using profits from the business to help families dealing with financial abuse. Legal fees, therapy, emergency housing, whatever they need. We call it the Raymond Bartlett Memorial Foundation." My eyes filled with tears. He would have loved that. I already talked to Patricia Monroe about it. She said she'd help us set it up. We could fund it with 10% of annual profits. That's about $320,000 a year, enough to help dozens of families. We spent the rest of the evening planning, talking about Raymond, remembering the good parts instead of just the painful ending. For the first time in 7 years, grief felt lighter, manageable, shared. As Nicole was leaving, she paused at the door. "Mom, can I ask you something? Do you ever regret the way everything happened? The will reading, the FBI, all of it? Every day. But I also know it was necessary. Sometimes the right choice is the painful one. Would you do it again, knowing how much it would hurt both of us?" I thought about the 167 families who'd come forward, about Maria Torres's grandmother getting her pension back, about the legislation that would protect future victims, about Nicole standing in my doorway, healed enough to risk love again. Yes, I'd do it again, because some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight destroys you. Nicole hugged me. "I love you, Mom. I don't think I've said that in 7 years. But I do. Even when I hated you, I loved you. I love you too, baby. Always have, even when I was too busy to show it." After she left, I sat with Raymond's journal one final time. I'd read it so many times the pages were worn, the ink fading, but the words remained. His wisdom, his love, his final lesson. I pulled out a blank journal and began to write. My own record. My own lessons, for Nicole, for future generations. For anyone who needed to hear that success without presence is just expensive loneliness. That empires built on absence collapse under their own weight. That the greatest legacy isn't what you build, it's who you become in the building. That is Ellen Bartlett's story. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our global community come together over these powerful stories about family betrayal, financial abuse, and finding the courage to fight back. Real question: if you were Ellen, what would you have done? Would you have exposed Derek at the will reading in front of everyone? Would you have confronted him privately to protect Nicole? Or would you have stayed silent to avoid destroying your daughter's marriage? Tell me in the comments. Hit that like button if this story made you feel something. Share it if you know someone dealing with financial abuse from family members, someone whose elderly parent is being exploited, someone who's been manipulated by a spouse or relative into betraying their own family. And subscribe for more raw, real stories about elder financial abuse, manipulative in-laws, the impossible choices mothers have to make, and what happens when you choose truth over family peace. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones who hurt you most. Sometimes family loyalty means enabling abuse. Sometimes the only way to save someone is to destroy their illusions. And sometimes choosing truth over peace is the most painful decision you'll ever make. See you in the next video.